Okay, I figured I bored you to tears enough with the gang stalking. I'm rather bored of it myself. It is a burden, but I have to document it because who knows, at a later time there may be trials like there were at Nuremberg, and these people will actually be put in a form where they can be held accountable with evidence. So, as much of a pain as it is, I have to be like a little CSI investigator and document as much as possible. If not for myself, then for posterity. Anyway, I'll break this video up by choosing a subject in my life, a life experience that maybe some of you haven't had experience with. How many of you have ever been to jail? County jail, not state penitentiary, but just regular jail for an extended period of time? Well, I'll give you an experience that I had at Santa Rita Jail, one amongst many there. It's in Dublin, California. It's one of the biggest jails that we have out here. It doesn't look that big from the outside, but it is pretty big, and it was also one of the first jails in California that had an automated food delivery and laundry delivery system. There was actually little robots that ran on a track that would deliver the food trays and do the laundry bins and stuff like that. And we'd come out sometimes, they'd march us outside for whatever reason, and they'd be running around, little boxes on wheels with little flashing red lights on top going to and fro. But what I'm going to tell you about Dublin, Santa Rita Jail, is what they call protective custody, and the abbreviation for it that convicts use is Punk City. Protective custody stands for Punk City. Now, before anyone gets hot and bothered about that pejorative, it actually has quite a literal meaning. You see, protective custody is for all of the inmates who can't make it in general population. You guys have probably watched Oz and all of these other different, stories in jail, but there are certain people that, if they were to be put amongst the regular inmates, they'd get beat up or killed. It could be because they're snitches, it could be because they're rapists, don't like rapists in there. I don't like them myself, but it could be because they were child molesters. I don't like child molesters either. But it could also be because they are transgender, transsexual, or homosexual. And some of those folks have been in general population and gotten along just fine. Some of the various jails I've been in throughout the Bay Area, I've run across some who were child killers, who were rapists, and who were, for lack of a better word, drag queens. They weren't really drag queens, but that's probably what most of you will understand. And basically, they got along fine just based on their conduct. What it really is that the penalties now in laws are so stiff. It doesn't change when you go inside of a jail or a prison. The laws are still applicable even inside of there. So everything that you can be convicted of on the outside, you can be convicted of on the inside. And it's easier to be convicted of on the inside because you're always being watched by a bunch of cops, the guards. Anyway, no one really wants to, get struck out, referring to the three strikes law. Struck out in jail. No one wants to get any additional time. Basically, when you go in there, what you're thinking about, if you have any hope of getting out, is going home. Some people have so much time they don't really care, but most of them in there are small timers, and they're trying to mind their P's and Q's and just get along, get the respect that they need, and then get out. So not too many people bothered these people that really should have been in protective custody. Not too many people bother them because you don't want to catch a case. You want to go home. But when I got to Santa Rita, I had a little disagreement about the terms of my contract regarding the artwork that I was doing for them, and it kind of got a little heated. Dealing with gangs, you know, is a two-edged sword. It can be really beneficial, and then it can be really bad, because you're not dealing with just one person or an individual. You're dealing with 10 or more. So when, you know, that relationship fell apart over my artwork, specifically what I was supposed to be paid, I kind of had to find safe harbor. So I said that I wanted to go to protective custody. There is how would I say it? It's a bad mark when an inmate goes to protective custody, because everybody assumes that you're an undesirable. Usually when someone goes from general population to protective custody, if they're not already known, you know, as a good person, and they go to protective custody, you're looked at with suspicion ever since. After that, you can't go back. People think you're a snitch, they think you're a rapist, they think something's wrong with you, so you're kind of stuck. But I had an old-timer, you know, an old pimp actually, you know, older guy, that told me about protective custody. He kind of pulled me to the coat, and he said, man, when I was younger, I used to go to protective custody just to get away from it all, just to have a vacation. Because in protective custody, everyone wants to stay there. They don't want to go back to general population. The atmosphere is totally different in protective custody, because everybody wants to stay there. They don't want to get kicked out. So it's lovely. For lack of a better word, you know, there's no pressure. The guards don't treat you bad or, you know, crack the whip. It's really kind of a different world than what you would experience in general population. He said, then he kind of, you know, looked at me and he said, there's girls in there too if you don't look that hard. And I kind of chuckled about that, you know, but I kind of was like, what are you talking about? Well, when I went there, I go in there and the atmosphere was immediately different. There was music playing. It looked like the inmates were boisterous, and lo and behold, I did see girls. Well, of course, they weren't girls. Not real girls, but if you've been locked up for a while, your mind starts to play tricks on you. So, you know, that was kind of shocking. But then I went in, you know, and I didn't really ask too many questions about who did what, you know. That was not really the concern. But I could tell some people were a little weirder than others. But on the whole, the experience was just fascinating. And it was like taking a vacation. There was no bullying. There was no pressure. The guards treated you very nice, you know. They didn't have rigid rules about when you're supposed to be in your cell or not. And the transsexuals in there, you know, it was kind of comforting to be around them, because they had feminine ways, and it was, you know, you kind of, you know, you'd sit down and talk with them. It was almost kind of like talking with a girl. There were some situations where some of them got a little too friendly, but, you know, it wasn't a big deal. And it was very interesting. It was fascinating. So for the person that's never had the experience, I guess I would just share that with you and tell you that I'm not going to have kids, so there's no one to pass that information on to, so I'll share it with you guys. The original charge that I was in there on, I'm not sure. I don't remember now what it was. I believe it was driving on a suspended license, like for my 4th or 5th time, you know, and the judge just said, hey, you got to do some time behind this. So, you know, I had actually caught a case somewhere else and had been transferred from Contra Costa County. And that case, I think, it wasn't a case of violence, but, you know, it was something that I would probably rather not say. It wasn't any kind of sexual crime either. It did have to do with driving as well. I like to drive. I'm a truck driver. I have a commercial license now. So anyway, I had my history with all that, but the protective custody, or Punk City, was very fascinating, and it was something else. and I did a lot of great artwork there too, and wrote some interesting stuff. Okay, a little bit about me, maybe more than I should have shared, but I'm open and honest, and that's my life experience. So until I talk to you again, see you later.